Hey, happy Wednesday morning. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Listen, would you do me a big favor? Would you hit the subscribe button, the share button, and the like button? All right. We're rapidly approaching 8,000 subscribers. I would love to finish that out and be at 8,000 and climbing by the end of May. We can do it. Pardon me. You can do it. So please do that for me. All right. We are continuing our study of how Paul, in regard to the feast days. Now remember, the Sabbatarians tell us, well, the ceremonial feast days were removed at the cross. They were nailed to the cross, but that's not what Paul says in Colossians chapter 2. It is not what the writer of Hebrews says, by the way, in Hebrews chapter 10, 9 and 10. More on that later. But Paul's very emphatic. The new moons, the feast days, and the Sabbaths were, when Paul wrote, shadows of the good things that were about to come. Whatever it was that the feast days, the Sabbaths, the new moons, whatever it was that they foreshadowed and typified, or to put it another way, what they prophesied, those things were about to come to pass. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, 2,000 years is not about to come to pass. That makes a farce of language. It destroys language. It's just nonsensical. And you know, I read and I hear people all the time, well, we got to remember one day's with the Lord, 1,000 years as a day. Well, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. To try to have Peter's statement, 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8, one day is with the Lord 1,000 years, to try to make that mean, well, you know, a day is 1,000 years, or 1,000 years is a day, it violates what Peter said. He's giving a metaphor. He's not saying one day is 1,000 years. He is not saying 1,000 years is a day in God's calculations. That's an abuse of the language. It's an abuse of the metaphor. When God said something, and remember, I've written this book, Who is This Babylon? And in this book, I have a very lengthy, a very special study on the time statements of Scripture. It has the same title as the little book that I produced long before this, entitled, Can God Tell Time? So people tell us, well, you know, I know Revelation said these things will shortly come to pass, and I know that when men say that kind of thing, it means imminent, but with God it doesn't mean that, because after all, one day is with the Lord 1,000 years, and et cetera, et cetera. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. We have examples in the Scripture in which when mankind heard God say something was at hand, they said, no big deal, it's a long time off. After all, one day is with the Lord is as 1,000 years. Yeah, we got lots of time. You know what happened when men did that? God condemned them for that. You catch the power of that? When men tried to make God's statements of imminence mean a protracted, extended period of time, God said, that is wrong. You are wrong. That's in Ezekiel chapter 12, 21 and following, by the way. And we have similar passages throughout the New Testament and the Old. So we've been looking yesterday particularly at the little Greek term en Taxei, found in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, which says the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show to his servants things which must shortly come to pass. Now, I want you to think about this very, very quickly, and then I'm going to get directly back into en Taxei. So you have a situation in the book of Revelation in which the seven churches are under persecution. We are told that in two of them, you live where the synagogue of Satan is. Those who claim to be Jews, they are not, for they are liars. The Jews are going to cast you into prison. Okay, so here we have a situation in which the churches are being persecuted for their faith. And we're supposed to believe that the Father gave a message to the Son to give to the churches, a message of comfort now, a message of consolation in the midst of their persecution, in the midst of being thrown into prison, in the midst of shedding the blood, in the midst of all of that. We're supposed to believe that Revelation chapter 1, verse 1 actually means this: the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to show to his servants the things that when they finally get around to happening, it may be in a couple of million years, but when it finally begins to happen, it's going to take place really, really fast, rapidly. Now, I liken this, and I've given this illustration before, and allow me the time to give this illustration before we get back into an examination of Taxei. That kind of argument is similar to the following. Let's say your house catches on fire. And you call the fire station and say, my house is on fire, my house is burning down. And the dispatcher at the fire station says, don't worry, sir, we'll be there shortly. Hurry. Sir, we'll be there shortly. You rush outside and the fire continues to burn and it blazes and your house burns to the ground and no fire truck. 6 months later, a year later, see, I had a house fire right here in good old Ardmore, Oklahoma. Didn't even burn my house down. Took us a year to get back into our house. So let's just say a year later, you're sitting on your rebuilt porch of your rebuilt house, and all of a sudden you hear the sirens blaring, just blasting down the street. And here comes fire trucks from both directions. And they slide with brakes screeching into your driveway. They jump out, they grab their hoses, and they're, where's the fire? Where's the fire? Where's the fire? And you're like, what are you doing? And they say, we're here to put your fire out. And you go, dude, that was a year ago. I called the firehouse and you said you were coming shortly. And they said, oh, wait a minute, dude. No, you don't understand. We weren't promising to leave soon. The only thing the dispatcher meant was that when we finally would get around to come, which is today, a year later, we're going to drive really, really, really fast. Seriously? You want to talk about an argumentum ad desperatum? Argumentum ad absurdum? Folks, you know that's not shortly come to pass. And it's ridiculous. It is a perversion of language to argue that way. Okay, I'm sharing with you how the Bible uses that term, Taxei, in the approximately 7 passages in the New Testament in which that term applies. Please go back and watch yesterday's video of Luke chapter 18 and verse 8. Okay, one of the next occurrences, Paul was in Jerusalem, and he was at the temple, and he was praying. And the Lord appeared to him and said, Paul, get out of Jerusalem quickly, for there are men who will seek your life. Arise and leave Jerusalem quickly. Taxei. So let me ask you a question, folks. Do you think Jesus was telling Paul, now look, Paul, listen, man, there's some really, really, really cool things to see in Jerusalem. Take your time. Be a tourist. Continue to come down to the temple and pray and meditate and share the gospel that you've learned. Don't worry about when you're going to leave. Now, there's some guys who want to kill you, mind you, But don't worry about when you're going to leave to get away from them. But here's the deal. Paul, when you finally get around to leaving Jerusalem, I want you to find a Shelby Super Snake chariot. I want you to find the fastest chariot with the finest purebred horses you can find. And I mean, I want you to cut a trail out of Jerusalem. Do you think that's what Paul understood? Or do you think he left immediately? Ladies and gentlemen, you know very good and well, it's ludicrous to interpret that passage to mean that Jesus wasn't telling him when to leave, but just how to leave. And yet, like I mentioned, there's a guy, he watches my videos very, very commonly. He's really a devout dispensationalist. And he argues, Jesus was not telling him when to leave. He's just telling him how to leave. This shows in an extremely powerful way how desperate people can become to defend their traditional doctrines. Modern scholars have a term for it. It's called dissonant or dissonance reduction. In other words, somebody comes face to face with evidence that they know is counter to what they believe. So they try to come up with arguments to reduce that internal conflict, that dissonance. Well, here's what I've always believed, but boy, this over here, ooh, wow, those two don't harmonize. Okay, so what am I going to do about that? Oh, I know, I'll make up an argument. May not be a good argument, may not be a valid argument, may not be a true argument, but guess what? I'm going to make the argument. I'm going to reduce the tension, the turmoil in my mind and my heart by offering that argument. Dissonance reduction. Folks, if we're going to be good Bible students, we should never engage in dissonance reduction. We must take what we have been taught and believed and confront it with what the text actually says. And the text used in Taxei as when something was going to happen, not as opposed to how it was going to happen. The third passage I'm going to look at very quickly is Acts chapter 22 and verse 18. And matter of fact, I'll just read to you a little bit from my book, Who is This Babylon?, in which I study in Taxei. When Paul was in the temple praying, the Lord appeared to him and said, I'm sorry, I got confused. I said Acts chapter 12. So I've already addressed Acts 22 when Paul was praying and the Lord said, get out of Jerusalem quickly. So let's go back to Acts chapter 12. I knew better than that. Why did I do that? Anyway, Peter is in prison in Acts chapter 12, verse 7. He's shackled to the wall. And let me tell you what, folks, being in any kind of a Roman prison, I can't even imagine it. The rats use you for food. But anyway, here's Peter shackled to the wall. Suddenly an earthquake comes. The door of the prison swings open and an angel in bright attire walks in. The shackles come off of Peter's arms and legs. And the angel says, Peter, arise quickly and depart. Arise and depart quickly. Now, do you suppose, I'm not trying to be facetious, I'm just simply trying to drive the point home. Do you suppose that Peter was saying, well, dear angel, sir, I appreciate that offer, and I actually started developing a friendship with this big old rat right over there in the corner. Do you mind if I have a little more time to train him? He turned out to be a pretty good fellow. And, the food isn't all that bad. So if you don't mind, I'll just hang around for a little while. That's not what the angel was saying or even allowing. Peter, arise and depart quickly. In other words, get up and get out of here right now. So we have Luke 18, Acts 12, 7, Acts chapter 22. 3 examples of in Taxei that simply cannot, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, be construed to mean rapidity of action as opposed to imminence of action. Now, let me emphasize, am I denying that there is an element of rapidity of action? No, I'm pretty sure, I'm just real confident that in Acts chapter 12, when the angel said, arise and depart quickly, I'm pretty sure Peter was like, yeah, you bet, out, gone. And I'm pretty sure that when the Lord told Paul in the temple, arise and depart from Jerusalem quickly, shortly, at hand, soon, etc., I'm pretty sure that Paul did not do what I suggested, and that is say, I got a bunch of sights to see. I love this city. It's such a wonderful place. No. He got out of town immediately. So there are 3 of the 7 instances of in Taxei. How should we then come to Revelation 1, verse 1, and assume that when the Father told John, these things must shortly come to pass, that there is no element of imminence found there? Now, as a promise, I'm going to be showing you where imminence is demanded for in Taxei in the book of Revelation. But I'm out of time today. Listen, take advantage of my special book offers, okay? Who is this, Babylon? Free shipping or shipping refunded if you order it. My 2 books, Resurrection Feast Fulfilled, and These Are the Days When All Things Must Be Fulfilled. Go to my website, order the books. You're going to save some really serious money. You will be really, really glad you ordered the books. They may well change your life. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you later in the week.